Now that my subfloor is prepared, it's time to put down the tile. Before we just start sticking the tile down onto the subfloor, we need to lay out where the tiles should go. Some of the things to consider when laying out where tile should go are, we don't want to make a lot of unnecessary cuts. We also want to lay it out in such a way that we don't have any really thin slivers of tile anywhere. We want substantial tiles everywhere. We don't want a little half-inch piece going down here or along the vanity. So I brought in some tile to start laying down just to get an idea of where I want my tile to go. So that's what I'll do now. We need to lay out the tile in two directions, from right to left and also from front to back. I'll start from right to left. In this bathroom, I think I'll start with a full tile on this side, and as we go along we will have about a 3-inch piece along the vanity, and we'll have to cut about a 6-inch piece to go behind the toilet. But this way should allow for minimal cutting, and it will also eliminate any really thin pieces of tile. Our thinnest piece is this piece here, which should look fine. This far right tile I'll keep back from the wall about 3/16 of an inch, just in case the wall has any kind of wave or slant in it. And then we'll put the baseboard over this after it's grouted so that you won't see this seam. I'll make a mark right here, and that will be my guide for the left to right orientation of the tiles. The distance from the wall to my reference mark is 24 7/16 inches. So I've gone to the front and back of the room and measured from the wall 24 7/16 inches and made similar marks. Next, we'll use a straight edge, or you can use a chalk box, and we'll make a straight line from the front to the back of the room. My reference line is now drawn, and as you can see, the tile come out where they should in the front and rear of the room with regard to this wall. I've now test fit some tiles from the front to the back of the room, and I've started with a full tile by the shower pan. I've started with a full tile here because this is going to be probably the wettest part of the room, and I don't want a whole bunch of grout lines here because the grout lines are porous and the water can get down in the grout. So I want a full tile here. So if we lay a full tile here and move to the front of the room, when we get to the last piece, it's about 2.5 inches, which I think is still acceptable. It's kind of a thin piece, but there is only a short spot here where we're going to need those pieces, and the only way to make this piece bigger would be to cut the piece that goes up against the pan, and I think I'll just leave that one as a full tile and do it this way. So that's going to be our layout from the front to the back of the room. Now that I have my front to rear orientation of the tile, I will make another mark right here. And that will be my reference from front to rear of the room. It's important to have as flat of surface as possible when you start sticking these tiles down. These seams are high spots. They're like little speed bumps between the pieces of backer board. They are necessary to add strength to the subfloor, but they will be an irritant when we start putting tile down on top of them. So what I'm going to do is take the smooth side of my notch trowel and just go like this, kind of shave down the high spot a little bit. Now that I've smoothed down these speed bumps, I will sweep the floor. Now we are ready to put down some tile. To attach the tile to the floor, I'm using this floor adhesive mortar mix. I'm going to mix it into a bucket with some water. I've added water and mixed this to the consistency of, I'd say, a thick cake frosting. Some professional tile people like to take their mortar and do a large patch of the floor and then stick the tiles onto the floor. I find it more manageable to apply the mortar to the back of the tile and then stick the tile down onto the floor. So I'll start by using this knife to apply some mortar to the tile. Then I'll use the notch trowel and that piece is ready to stick down. I'll line it up with my reference marks from before. And press down. And the floor tile is officially started. Now I'll repeat the process with all of the full tiles that I can lay, and then I will cut the perimeter pieces to fit. Now I'm ready to put down piece number 2, so I will insert my spacers. And put down the tile. It's important to make sure that one tile is at the same height as the next. And that one feels good. Once you set the tile, it's important to not disturb it, because once the mortar starts to cure, if you move the tile, you may crack or start to crumble the mortar underneath. As you're laying down the tile, it's important to keep a note of your reference lines and use them as a guide as you're putting down the tiles. I've put down a few tiles, but now I want to make a cut. So I'll lay my tile right here, close to the place where it goes, and I will just take a few measurements right here, and in the opposing directions, and make the lines on the tile. I've now made my marks and it's ready to cut. Be sure when you make these marks that you allow for whatever size grout line you're going to use. Some things to remember when cutting tile. If at all possible, try to preserve the factory edge of the tile. This edge is straighter and smoother than anything you can cut with a tile saw or a tile breaker. So this piece, for instance, that goes right here, we want to put the factory edge, which is this one, against this tile, which is the line that's going to show. This line is not going to show and won't be exposed. So keep the factory edge as much as possible. Also, make sure to measure very carefully, because once the tile is cut, if it's too short, you've pretty much wasted it unless you want an ugly fat grout line once the piece is installed. Time to cut her, butter. I've made a little more progress, and I've just come back from cutting a few of these pieces that go here. The most difficult being this one that goes around the toilet outlet. It needs to be done very carefully. I used a wet saw and just very slowly etched out around the edges. So that's something that takes a little while, and you need to be careful not to break the tile while you're doing that. Remember that after you've stuck a tile to the subfloor, don't disturb it and don't step on it for at least 24 hours. That gives the thinset mortar time to cure and fully bond the tile to the subfloor. Even if it means you have to perform some gymnastics to install a corner tile or a cut piece, it is necessary to not disturb any of the other surrounding tiles. There is the entire floor covered with the tiles. Now we just need to let it dry overnight, and then we can apply the grout.